So, Joe Biden has ordered airstrikes on Syria. So the empire continues. The empire was already continuing. 750 military bases. We got 26 of the 27 wars still carrying on. And the thing with Yemen, we're not out of Yemen yet. So Joe Biden never said that we were going to get out of Syria. Joe Biden only said we were going to get out of Yemen. But is it any shock that Mr. Patriot Act, Mr. Bankruptcy Bill, Mr. Credit Card, Mr. Iraq War, I mean, the Iraq War, including Hillary's position on Syria was a no-fly zone. So let's push up against Russia. Let's push for World War III. Now, I read one headline that said that this is the first U.S. airstrike, the first one that Biden has ordered. This is the first one. Not true. January 30th, 2021, there is airstrikes on Al-Shabaab. Several Al-Shabaabs were killed 10 days into Biden's presidency. So in Somalia. So there has been airstrikes in Somalia. And we've got 5 or 6 active war zones right now. You got Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, and Syria. We're still part of that war. I don't remember us getting out. And in Yemen, we're going to stop some arms sales to Saudi Arabia, but not others. So yes to Tommy, fuck war, fuck empire. This shit pisses me the fuck off. And let's listen to some to Tommy.
Their kids can't return here. Their grandkids often can't return here. I just don't understand how we've gotten here. How is it this hard? What is the level of lack of education, of relationships, of society, of being a neighbor? What?
I think it's all the above, to Tommy. I think that the public education system, the totalitarian public education system, it gets people used to the authority figures, dictatorships. It gets people, we're not talking to each other. We're not actually in a town hall where we respect each other and listen to each other's opinions. It's all about making massa happy.
What is missing that we are okay with this? And honestly, him beginning the bombing people.
I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it in the slightest. Right now, what it looks like to me is that there's no hope on the national scene. There's no hope. We only got 10, 20 progressives. 10, 20 progressives, all people of color except for 1 or 2. So no white progressives, out of 500 people, no white progressives. And the reason why I mention that is because if you don't have any white progressives in leadership, and they're all a bunch of fucking psychos, so if you have a bunch of psychopaths who aren't progressive in leadership, the people's going to be worse. Those are the leaders, so they have to, shine brighter. So we've been bombing Somalia, bombing Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. Syria, day one of Joe Biden's administration, we had that convoy. Israel and America stole oil, protected the oil fields, stole the oil for Israel. So we've had bombings. We had airstrikes specifically on January 30th, 2021, so the reports that said that this was Biden's first airstrikes. Now, there was another report that said that there's been 0 drone strikes so far. That's pretty amazing. But the empire continues. We just passed that damn CARES Act, the $600 check, the $600 check that was tied into a coup d'etat with Venezuela. So with the sanctions and with the money that we're spending for coup d'etat on Iran and Venezuela, the sanctions, we're killing people with the sanctions, we're killing people with airstrikes. The empire continues. 750 military bases. There's only 200 countries. Seems like Russia, China, and Scandinavia are the only places we don't occupy. And then America's history, out of the entire history, there's only been like 10 years that America hasn't been in war. So, to Tommy, you are correct. You should be pissed off. I don't see any hope on the national scene, and so I would suggest that you focus on local and state. Focus on local and state. That's what I'm doing. In Colorado, it's a blue state. There's progressives, around here somewhere. I hear there's progressives in Colorado. But that's actually pretty important, because if, God forbid, if, Donald would have been the president, I feel like Colorado would have been okay. This is a Democratic state. We would have been okay. So I don't know what to tell you, what to do, or, how to feel about any of this. I feel like there's no hope on the national scene. Joe Biden's going to be a right-wing, piece of shit. He's going to be conservative. He says nothing is fundamentally going to change. And where are the anti-war people at? Where's the anti-war movement at? We haven't been anti-war since Vietnam. The Iraq War is a bipartisan consensus. Hillary, Joe Biden, they're all for the Iraq War. So I would assume Joe Biden's position is the same as Hillary, which is Kissinger, which is empire, hegemony. Why are we bombing Syria? Because we can't let Russia win. My God, we got to... You can watch Richard Medhurst. Like and subscribe a bunch of YouTube, folks. Richard Medhurst is on it. Richard Medhurst is a beast. Buy his T-shirt. He's got the Rainbow Coalition. Something about Joe Biden, apparently since there's a black Secretary of Defense and a female something, and basically we got a nice Rainbow Coalition of which we're going to drop bombs on. So does that make it better? Does that somehow... No, it's the same thing. It's a bipartisan consensus. The war, the forever war, it never ends, right? It goes on and on, my friend. People started thinking, well, what the fuck is going on? But this is the war that goes on and on.
Against literally a war crime. Like I said, all of our presidents have been war criminals for at least the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, and nothing has happened. There's no consequences, and that escalates to no consequences here, no consequences there, no consequences over here, no consequences back home. It's just like, it's insane to me that we are allowing this to escalate, and that we're going to justify this somewhere in our minds, that Biden is a war criminal within 40 days of his inauguration.
He was a war criminal on day one. He was a war criminal when they stole the damn oil. He was a war criminal when he dropped the airstrikes on Somalia. The empire carries on. The empire carries on. And so what do we do? What do we do? What can we do? Right? There's that thing of courage to know the difference between what we can and cannot change. I've been pushing to end the war, fucking forever, and I have not been successful. So I'm pissed about this. I mean, look at Star Wars. The Empire were the bad guys. Luke Skywalker were the good guys. The rebels were the good guys. You are part of the Rebel Alliance. The Empire blew up fucking planets. We thought about blowing up Vietnam to win that damn thing, so right now we're in 6 active war zones if you include Yemen, which I will. So right now, the United States government is part of 6 active war zones and 26 actual wars if you include the 20 shadow wars in Africa. And why wouldn't you? That's how Vietnam started. So we got 20 little possible Vietnams brewing in Africa right now. And no telling in South America and Asia and wherever else our military bases are.
Inauguration. Within 40 days of his inauguration, he has chosen to be a war criminal because there are no consequences, because we don't vote for other people, because we consider that kind of war criminal a lesser evil to this kind of war criminal. And it boggles my mind, especially because when I look at the amounts of people who voted for both blue and red, I see an even bigger sea of people who didn't vote at all.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, because that's a huge block. I would think, politicians would look at the block of non-voters and say, if they decide to vote, they'll probably vote for the person that got them registered to vote. And that is the biggest block of people. It's not, hey, you voted, red, hey, you voted blue. You didn't vote at all. That's about 50% of America. You did not vote at all. You were not a part of the democracy in the least bit. You didn't do goddamn shit. If you didn't even vote, are you writing letters? Are you paying attention to the representatives and writing it and calling them up and pushing whatever legislation and this and that? Are you doing anything? Are you being a good citizen? Are you being a good civic republic, a citizen in this democracy? A complacency in a democracy is just as bad as a totalitarian dictatorship. If anything, it's worse. You got the illusion of freedom. Meanwhile, you got the exact same strict, hierarchical, totalitarian controls. Two comments I want to make. So there's Uganda, Niger, Central African Republic. These are just some countries that we have troops in. And these military bases that we have troops in the African shadow wars, we have no idea why the fuck they're there. There's a secret agreement, and, I give them the benefit of the doubt, which I don't even know why the hell I would even do something like that. Because, we're in, Kenya and Cameroon, Uganda, Niger, Central African Republic, just to name a few. Why are we there? Why are we in the Central African Republic? Why? Huh? You tell me, Tatami. It's a secret. We don't know why they're there. We don't know why they're in Cameroon. There's Boko Haram, and there's, terrorists all over the place. So that's always going to be the justification, is that it's terrorism. But the big problem with Syria, and this is a big problem with Yemen too, is that we're allies with ISIS and ISIL and Al-Qaeda. The whole point of the war on terror, go back and read the, authorization to use military force, the AUMF, AUMF, which is our declaration of war on the entire world to stop terrorism. We were going to go after the people that perpetuated 9/11, which would be Saudi Arabia and Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda and only Al-Qaeda and only, anybody affiliated with Al-Qaeda. That would be the main, but we're in Syria because we're trying to topple Assad. We are siding with the radical, Mujahideen, the ones that's right there on the fence. Yeah, we're siding with the terrorists. We're siding with Al-Qaeda and ISIS in order to topple Assad for regime change, for hegemony, because we're an empire and we control the fucking world. So we want to take Syria. It's our country. We're going to take Syria because the Pentagon, because the intelligence agencies, because the deep state want it, and the presidents are irrelevant. And we have a failed state, a nation that is not responsive to its citizens whatsoever. So it's even more fucked up. It's even more fucked up, the thing with Syria, because we're allying with the terrorists in order to fight, the guy's country, and you could say it's his own country, but he's a piece of shit too, so it's a clusterfuck. It is just one big-ass clusterfuck. And I guess what? Putin and all the rest of them will just fucking do hip hip hooray if we fucking leave. Who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck if they gloat? If you're heading down the wrong road, it's never too late to turn back around. And so, yeah, I'm a strict isolationist. I'm an American, and I cannot stand that we spend a single penny, a single dime on any of this war and bloodshed. These secret wars, these secret nation-building, empire-extending. Fuck war. Fuck empire. Empire doesn't help me. Empire doesn't help the working class of... Empire doesn't help me. Empire, I don't know who the fuck is pushing for empire. I don't know why it's so damned important. I think us being in Ukraine is good. And maybe is that an active war zone in Ukraine? So Ukraine, I think, is, we need to defend Ukraine from Russian aggression. But most of this shit, Somalia, Libya, Syria, I just don't see the people in Alabama being like, you know what, we need to go to war with Syria because it is a vital strategic interest. No, the American people don't know what's going on. The American people don't even know that we're an empire. And we spend, nearly $1 trillion, $740 billion on this shit. So every penny, every dime that we spend on bombs, we're taking out of our own domestic social spending. So we are literally robbing ourselves to continue this charade of military might. I guess the argument of empire is that it's good for our interest, but I feel like people resent being militarily occupied, and we need diplomacy, and we need to treat others as equals, and we don't do that. And then it makes me wonder, with all these fascist authoritarians running around, we're going to trust that these fascist authoritarians, they're doing good in Cameroon, they're doing good in Central African Republic. Remember, Ronald Reagan sided with Osama bin Laden, and he was against Nelson Mandela. Never forget that. Ronald Reagan said that Nelson Mandela, a good fucking guy, a freedom fighter, a hero, ended apartheid, was a bad guy. Ronald Reagan said a good guy was a bad guy, and then Osama bin Laden, he said, was a good guy, gave him a bunch of weapons, and then bam, 9/11 happened with some blowback. So it's important to get it right. It's important to get the world situation correct. Nelson Mandela, you want to support apartheid, but then Osama, the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, that's wrong, but we're in Afghanistan right now, so to Tommy, I am mad, I am pissed. I'm focused on local and state. I'm focused on, what I can change. I'll keep on speaking out about this. There's some shit that happened in Cameroon and Somalia recently, so, I'm going to keep on, but I don't know. I don't want to just be a reactionary. I just don't want to be a commentator. Oh, look, the media is making a big fucking fuss about this shit because they do it every day. There's a big fuss about something, right, every day. And then people lose focus of the goal. I don't know.
And I wonder what it would take for you to stand up and do a duty for your country and vote for Green. And
I voted for Green.
People who are looking at that in the eye and are totally disgusted by it. Because I honestly, first of all, Green Party is high level in other countries, but also because I don't believe most Americans want this. I don't believe most Americans want to be funding the crap, the terrorism that our country...
I'd like to think that most Americans wouldn't want that, but here's the way I look at America. So you got half the country that doesn't vote, so they're just a bunch of, complacent, degenerate fucks. So half the country doesn't vote, and then the other half, half of them vote for fucking Republicans, which are insane. That's insane to me. But then the other half vote for Democrats, and that's not too much better. It's a little bit better. but it's not apricity. It's not being warmed by the sun. It's not even close to anything that I feel like America is just so fucking far off track, and on the national scene there's no progressives, so I don't see how the United States of America gets back on track if Joe Biden doesn't get us universal health care, if he doesn't do major shit, but he never promised to do major shit. And so I think we have to get a Bernie Sanders elected president, a kind of Bernie, a socialist, after Joe Biden fails in the next 4 years. We need to, Joe's not being pushed to the left. It's already, 10, 30, 40, 50 days into the thing. This 100 days is fucking lame. It's not nearly enough. And then what can you do on the national scene anyways, unless you become a representative yourself on the local and state level? Local, you could, drive to the mayor's house and be like, hey, mayor, what the fuck's up, man? And on the state, that's a little bit better because at least it's, a couple-hour drive. But for half the damn country, it's a day or 2 or 3 days drive to the nation's capital? So it's almost like America's too big. I mean, we got a fucking empire. It's just too big. It's too bulky. I'm too small. My voice doesn't matter. How could I even put pressure? I could go to the offices in Colorado and put pressure on the offices, but, my representative is in D.C., so I can't say, hey, damn it, you voted wrong. You need to vote right. We'll write a letter, send it to your, office. Who hears that? Nobody hears that. What's that do? That doesn't do much of anything at all. So I think focus on state and local. I mean, that's all I got. That's all I got. Focus on state and local. I'll keep speaking out about this, but I don't know what my. I guess at the very least, you could always say, this is bullshit. So that's, I guess, my role. Bullshit! So yeah, I'm focused on local and state right now. And, give me a moment, give me a day or two. Shit. I'll get back on. There's a lot of things everybody keeps, that joke. Michael Shea said a joke on Saturday Night Live about Israel and vaccine, whatever. There's a lot of shit that I want to comment on, but I'm meditating, I'm reflecting, I'm breathing, taking deep breaths, and I'm focused on state and local. Because there's no hope on the national scene unless we create a progressive coalition and then get our own people elected. The only hope on the national scene is if we as Americans in all the different states say enough is enough. So
is doing to other countries. I don't think most Americans want a base in all but one African country. I don't think most Americans want to be funding coups in other countries because I think most Americans want to be having funding here. They want the fucking crumbling infrastructure around here to be fixed. They want their kids to have a better education. They want to look around when they're 90 and feel fucking in some way sad.
So I guess what I was saying is that I think half the country, you got defund the police, and the other half the country that says the police can do no wrong. So I think half the country doesn't give a shit at all. We're right, whether we're wrong or right? So love it or leave it. The cops, the authorities, whatever they say. But the other half is saying defund the police, which is, we still need police, but let's think of policing in a different way, right? With mental health and addiction clinics and homelessness, economic issue. What is a police officer going to do with an economic situation. You give them money. Oh, you're homeless, so here's my money. So I think half the country's for defund the police and the other half is for, so, yeah. I think half the country probably would hate that we're doing this shit but don't know what to do about it, and then the other half doesn't give a shit. And actually, when I say half and half, I want to say the red and blue. So actually, it's only 25% don't give a shit. 25%, they give enough of a shit to vote, but they don't give a shit about the people that are being hurt. And then the vast majority are just not even voting, not doing jack shit of nothing. So 25% are active and they give a shit. 25% are active and don't give a shit. And then 50% don't give a fuck about anything at all. They don't give a fuck about the community, you or me. They don't give a fuck about anybody else. They're focused on themselves. You know, they're working on themselves. And you know what? Maybe if everybody was working on themselves, I think that's okay. I'm fine with that. If you're working on yourself, you keeping your shit, you got your, you know, what am I saying? You got your shit together, that's good for the community. You got your shit together, that's good for the community, that your bullshit isn't spilling out. So it is good.
Satisfied that something has changed for the better. And there's nothing that us continuing to terrorize the rest of the world and make enemies in the rest of the world is going to do that. I don't think it will create anything good for our country, and I don't think it's for any citizen in our country. And so therefore I wonder why we are standing by silently and watching this.
I've been speaking out about it for 20 fucking years, so I don't... You mean stop the war? Is that what you're asking me? I mean, if you're not saying, if you're asking me, that's a different... I don't know. So, yeah, peace. Alright, I know. Peace. Stop wars, man. Come on, America. Lauren Boebert said she's against the fucking war. Focus on local and state.